It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thanks for joining me this morning. I'm your host, Brian Beatty, and this is your first time tuning in. We talk all things real estate here in the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Been doing this for a little over a year, and I like to take, if this is your first time tuning in, I like to take national, regional, local news and then apply that to you, the local homeowner, home buyer, so that when it comes time to buy or sell a home, you have the information you need to make an informed real estate decision. I have been in the top 1% of agents on our market since 2009. So if you have any interest in buying or selling a home, please feel free to connect with me personally. The best way to do that is to go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can search the MLS. You can read some testimonials from past clients, take a look at everything I have for sale and have sold. And if you're considering selling your home, you can click on the Sellers tab and learn a little bit more about my marketing plan and my 59-day home sale guarantee, which very simply states that I will sell your home in 59 days or less, or I will sell it for half my commission. So that website, listingsincharleston.com, or feel free to give me a call, 843-345-1273. So I want to give you an idea of what I want to talk about this weekend. We're really at the point in time in our market where we've got a lot of momentum going on. Everybody is busy, and want to share with you just the good, the bad, and the ugly of this time of the year and this kind of market. So I want to talk about that. We'll talk about that very shortly. A little bit later on in the program, a lot of people have asked recently, how do I list my home and purchase a home and figure all of that out? How do we put some protection in place so that I don't end up selling my home without having somewhere to move, and I don't buy something without first having sold my home? So how do I figure all that out? Well, I'm going to talk with you about that, and I'm going to lay out a roadmap using a few different techniques, and I'm going to help you kind of think through how to put this all on paper so that when it comes time to move up or move down and you have a home to sell that you want to sell and then buy, we'll help you figure out how to do that. And then a little bit later on in the show, I've got a few things that I want to kind of go through in terms of just very specific Charleston market-based updates. And then lastly, I want to give you just some general criteria for things to avoid in this market, because I think that people right now are very excited about real estate. They see what's going on. They see that properties are selling quicker. They're selling for more money. They're selling for a lower percentage off of a higher percentage, I guess I should say, off of what they thought they could get it for. Homes aren't as negotiable. So when you have an environment where prices are rising, inventory is reducing, and everything is just moving very quickly, a lot of buyers in this market, and I've seen it on the listings that I represent, and I've seen it on some of the buyers that I meet with that are just ready to go. But I need to have them pump their brakes just a little bit so that we can make sure that once we find the home we're really, truly interested in, that we want to buy, that we've put those protections in place and we've taken some appropriate steps to make sure that everything is going to work out just fine. So I want to talk about a little bit later on in the program how to avoid some pitfalls. So that's what I've got planned today. Again, if you'd like to reach out to me, feel free to do so. 843-345-1273 is my phone number. You can text me at that number, or again, the website, listingsincharleston.com. So let's talk just a little bit about what's going on right now in our market. Obviously, we're middle of April. Market is hot. We've got a lot of people that are now thinking of putting their home on the market or are now starting to put their home on the market. And it's also the time of year where we have buyers that are inquiring on all kinds of property for sale. They're getting out there, they're physically looking at homes, and if they're ready and willing and able to go, then they're making offers. So good time of the year just for everybody in general, buyers, sellers, and agents. And I want to tell you just, I kind of said a little bit earlier that I wanted to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's going on right now. So the good news is, of course, if you're a seller, you don't have a lot of competition out there in most areas, I should say. If you're in Somerville in the $200,000 price range, or if you're in Goose Creek, or, parts of Dorchester County and parts of Berkeley County where you have a lot of new construction as your competition, then you're going to have maybe a little bit tougher time to sell, but probably not that hard of a time, to be completely honest with you. Anything that's priced reasonably well right now that's in good condition is selling, and it's selling fast. So what's happening right now is that if you're a seller, you put your home on the market, you've put a little bit of work into making sure that it's in show condition. You're putting your things away before people come through. The pictures, you took a little bit extra time before you had the pictures taken of your house so that everything looks nice, it looks clean. You've touched up some paint, you did some landscaping, you've decluttered your home, so on and so forth. And on top of all of that, you've priced it reasonably well based on comps, based on what's sold in your area over the past 6 months. Then guess what? You're going to sell pretty fast. We were working with some folks looking at property in Mount Pleasant over the past few days, and they are in the $550 to $750 price range. They want to purchase something, and it is amazing the overall lack of inventory for what they want. And so we had to be very specific in terms of doing our research up front to make sure that once we found something that they were truly interested in, because of that lack of inventory, they had to be ready to go. So obviously the good news is that if you're a seller and you're preparing your home for sale, you're doing the things that you need to do to make sure that you're going to sell quickly and for the most money, then guess what? You're in a great spot. And if you're not considering selling right now, then of course you're just sitting there earning money through your increase in equity. If you're a buyer, things can be a little bad for you right now in the event that something hits the market, and let's say that the seller and the listing agent come up with the idea that they want to price it just a little bit below what it's truly worth so that they can get immediate offers on the property, so that they can generate a multiple offer situation. I see it happening more and more. It doesn't happen too often, but when it does, buyers are fighting over property. And so if you're a buyer right now and you haven't aligned yourself with an agent that really understands what's going on and can help position you so that when you find that perfect home, they can get it for you, or recommend the steps necessary to put your offer on a pedestal compared to the other offers that are going to come in. If you're not in a position to do that, or if you haven't done your homework, or if you haven't had that conversation with somebody, then things could end up badly for you. So that's the bad part of the good and the bad. And then the ugly, I'll tell you a quick story before we go to break. The ugly is I had a seller that heard me on the program, ended up listing her home with me. And I've mentioned this before, but she had some outlandish idea of what her property was worth based on the opinion of value from other real estate agents. So what I mean by that is she had agent number one come in and say, you should price it at $199. She had agent number two come in and say, you should be at $450. What? That's double. That's more than double what the previous agent just said. And I came in and I said, look, there is a very limited amount of comparable properties for your home. So we need to take a look at a little bit of an outside-the-box approach in terms of determining what your home is actually worth. But then we also need to act as if we're a buyer, and then let's search in a few different price ranges, and depending upon what's available in those price ranges, let's figure out where we fall within those price range gaps. So we ended up listing at $325. Within 3 days, we had 2 full price offers. So her home was under contract at $325. Everybody was happy. Buyer feels like they're getting a good deal. Seller feels ecstatic because it's under contract in a very short amount of time for the price that she wanted. And then the appraisal comes in. And the appraisal comes in at $235,000. And again, we're under contract at $325. And my first thought is, wow, this appraiser must have dyslexia or something like that. It's under contract at $325, not $235. But as it turns out, this particular appraiser used some very interesting tactics to determine what she believed to be the value of that property, which we ended up contesting the value of that appraisal to. We had a second appraisal ordered, and guess how much that came in for? $340,000. That means there was over a $100,000 gap between two different appraisers, professionals in their field. So we are working through it. We will end up closing on the property, and the buyer has said, look, I'm getting sick of this. I'm just going to pay cash for it, and we're going to close next week. So now the lenders are kind of, dancing around trying to figure out what they need to do to get the loan closed. But that's an example of just some of the things that we have to deal with when the market is appreciating the way that it is. So when we come back, I'm going to talk about how to avoid some of these situations, and if they do come up, because sometimes we can't control everything, how do we handle it? What's the best way to do that? So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I'll be right back. And again, if you want to reach out to me, 843-345-1273 is my cell. And my website is www.listingsincharleston.com. I'll be right back.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. That's lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. WTMA. Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks for joining me this morning. If this is your first time tuning in, or if you're just joining us, we talk all things real estate here on this program. I like to take national, regional, local news, apply that to the Low Country so that when it comes time for you to buy or sell a home, or you're thinking of investing, you've got the information you need to make an informed decision. You're aware of the real estate trends. And of course, me being a top 1% agent in our market for the past 5 years, I like to share my experiences, tell you what's going on in the industry so that you've got a good pulse on the market and can make some informed decisions about whether or not you want to enter the market at a given time. If you'd like to reach out to me, the best way to do that is to go to my website. My website is www.listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can search the MLS. You can read some testimonials from past clients, take a look at everything I have for sale and have sold. And if you're curious about selling your home, click on the Sell Your Home tab, and you can learn a little bit more about what I do to market my properties. And of course, you can learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee. And that guarantee very simply states that I will sell your home in 59 days or less, or I will sell it for half my commission. And you can also, you can go on the radio tab, and I've just done this over the past few weeks. You can listen to some previous versions of the show. So again, that website, listingsincharleston.com, or give me a call or text my cell phone. That number is 843-345-1273. So before the break, I was talking about this ridiculous appraisal issue that I had to deal with this week. And I almost didn't want to tell the story because it's the type of story where it really just it causes me to question how people like that can be in this industry and why something like that is allowed. So if you're just joining us, the very short version of the long story is that I put a property under contract in a matter of days with multiple full price offers, and the appraisal came in at about 30% below what we were under contract for. So we had to hire a second appraiser to go out. The second appraisal ended up appraising it for more than the purchase price. And now the bank is trying to figure out how they want to, deal with this. So I don't deal with this very often. That was a unique property, and I'll say that to anybody listening, is that we don't have a ton of appraisal issues right now. We have them every once in a while, but that was kind of a unique instance in which the agent that you hire really needs to help prepare for the worst. And how do you do that? So what I want to do is I want to talk first about the position that the other buyer was in that transaction that I just told you about, which was a multiple offer scenario. Several people interested. We could have had a third contract. I said, hey, we already have multiple offers at full price or better. If you want to entertain that, that's great, but you're going to have to be over list price at this point. They chose not to. So how, as a buyer and how, as an agent, do we collectively make sure that if we find a home that we're really interested in, that we position ourselves as best as possible to be the contract that they choose in a multiple offer situation? So I want to take you through this, and I want to tell you kind of how this has changed over the past few years. Over the past few years, what used to happen, especially when it comes to short sales or foreclosures or any form of distress sale, was, obviously you figure out what the property is worth, which you hire a real estate agent to do. That is one of our fiduciary responsibilities to you when you hire us as your buyer agent, is to provide you with an opinion of value. Obviously, you want to know what that property is actually worth, regardless of what the seller is asking. So the listing price, more often than not, is not a great indication of what that home is actually worth. That's one of the reasons why you hire a real estate agent. So before we go any further, let me first just say that anytime you make an offer in any market, in any scenario, it is totally unacceptable for both you, the buyer, and the buyer agent to not investigate previous sales and come up with a determination for what that property is actually worth. It's, in my opinion, there is no property that does not deserve that amount of very basic due diligence. So having said that, let's say that we know for a fact that we're looking in a neighborhood that is consistently in the mid 350s to 375, and there's a home listed for $300,000, and it's almost exactly like everything else. It just maybe needs a paint job or some carpet or something like that. In that instance, if you really have a good pulse on the market, you've been looking around, you have a good idea of what it's worth, then I think in that instance it's okay to say, hey, this is a great deal. We need to jump all over this, and we need to do it right now. But for the most part, especially in this market right now, the one that we're actually in, not fantasy land anymore, we've got to be able to do our due diligence in a timely manner. We have to do it quickly, and we have to do it responsibly, because here's the deal. Any property that's priced at or even slightly over fair market value, as long as it's in good shape, it's going to sell quickly. If you're in Mount Pleasant, if you're in downtown Charleston, James Island, West Ashley, parts of North Charleston, parts of all over the place, there are very hot pockets within the Tri-County area. So what I'm talking about is how to create a package to deliver to the seller that has it stand out from the crowd versus the other potential offers that might be made. So the first thing that you need to do, and this goes without question, this is obviously, something that it doesn't matter if you're doing it for a property that needs a bunch of work. It doesn't matter what price it is. It doesn't matter how far above or below it's priced in relation to the market. Obviously, that seller wants to see a pre-approval letter or better from you, the buyer, if you're getting a mortgage. So if you're getting a mortgage, there are really 3 steps that you can take. You can do a pre-qualification, which is kind of the bare minimum to show sellers that you've, in good faith, provided your financials to a lending institution. They've reviewed it. They've taken a look at your credit score. They may or may not have taken a look at your tax returns, your bank statements, so on and so forth. And they said, hey, you know what? Yep, you're at least pre-qualified. The next step would be to say, I want you to pre-approve me. I want you to actually look at my tax returns. I want you to look at my bank statements. And I want you to give me a more firm idea that if I'm going to go and I'm going to make an offer on this property and I'm going to put up earnest money, that what you're telling me is going to work out. I don't want to get involved in a contract and then find out 3 weeks later that you can't do my loan. So I want a pre-approval. So that'd be the second step. That takes it a step further. The third step would to actually get approved for a loan prior to identifying a property. And lenders are doing it more and more these days, especially as we see more multiple offer scenarios, especially as we, go even further into the rabbit hole of being a seller's market in the Charleston area. So what does that mean? It means that they actually send your financials to an underwriter The underwriter reviews it, and they say, yep, based on your tax returns, your bank statements, your debt, your income, your credit score, so on and so forth, you are approved for a loan of this amount. Go find a property and let's go buy you something. So that is a very simple overlook, really, of how to separate yourself from your competition, the competition being other buyers looking at the same property. So it can be something that simple. So let's take it just a little bit of a step further, because when you make offers on property, sometimes the contracts that I receive when I represent a seller are just riddled with contingencies. They have contingencies for this and that and that and that and that. So there's a few things that you can do on your contract to make sure that, number one, you're protected, but number two, that you're not providing the seller with this contract with so many holes in it that says, hey, here's something that, you can use as evidence that I want to buy your property, but if I don't like the way the wind blows in the front yard, I'm going to walk out. I'm going to get out of the deal. So we need to be careful on the contract that we write, so that when the seller is reviewing it with their agent, they're not looking at it and saying, this is a big get out of jail free card, is really all this offer is. Yeah, they'll move forward and yeah, they'll buy it. But if they want to get out of it for any reason, they have the ability to. So it's kind of tough to give you those specific contingencies on the radio. What I will tell you is that if you're considering buying, or if you have an interest in selling your home, doesn't matter if you want to hire an agent, you want to do it yourself, so on and so forth. Let's just have a chat about some of the contingencies that are common in terms of things that can protect you. And then there are also, from a real estate agent's opinion, things that are common that are really kind of frowned upon. One of them being at the very end of the contract, contingent upon buyer's sole satisfaction with all inspections, financing, and appraisal. That's a very open-ended sentence that really kind of goes against a lot of what's already in the contract, especially as it relates to the contingencies that have time frames associated with them. So make sure that when you're working with an agent that they're not putting some sort of open-ended language at the end of the contract, that when they're going to be reviewed by a listing agent and a seller, they're going to say, well, I don't like that language. That means they can get out for any reason. So I don't like the way this contract is written. I much prefer the way this contract is written. It's really not that far off in terms of price. Why don't we just go with this one and leave that open-ended language out of it? I don't want to deal with that. So just something to think about. I'm going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
The Big Talker WTMA.
Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks for joining me this morning. If you're just tuning in, we talk all things real estate here on this program. Everything that I absorb as a top agent in our market, I like to kind of dish out and tell you as just experiences from again, a top agent in our market, so that when it comes time for you to buy or sell a home in the Charleston area, you've got the information you need. You've got a good pulse on the market. We just talked about, positioning yourself if you're considering purchasing a home to do so in such a manner that your offer will get chosen over other buyers' offers, and really just enjoy being on the program and offering you some insight on how to take advantage of some opportunities in real estate, and then just as importantly, get the information you need so that, again, when it comes time to buy or sell a home, you're a little bit smarter, a little bit wiser, you've got the information you need. And again, we can position you to accomplish your real estate goals. If at any time you'd like to reach out to me, I am a top real estate agent in the market, have been since 2009. Best way to do that is to go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. You can search the MLS there, read some testimonials from past clients, take a look at everything I have for sale and have sold, listen to some previous versions of the show, and then if you click on the Sell Your Home tab, you can learn a little bit more about what I do to market my properties for sale, including my 59-day home sale guarantee, which very simply states that I will sell your home in 59 days or less, or I'll sell it for half my commission. So when we took a break, we were talking about how to position ourselves so that if we are up against another buyer in a multiple offer situation, that our offer has the best chance of getting accepted. And for anybody that's in that situation or has been in that situation, one of the things that I had mentioned is you really need to try and take your financing as far as you can possibly go, so that when you present your offer to the seller, you can say, hey, we have already been through the underwriting process. We know, because we have written approval, that if we make an offer at this price, that the buyer will get financed. So there's no threat to you, Mr. Seller, that we put your home under contract and then the deal falls through because of some financing related issue. We've already been through that and we're approved. So if you can go to a seller and you can say that, wow, what a strong thing to be able to say, rather than going up against a buyer that has a pre-qualification letter that says, basically, this is what a pre-qualification letter says, yeah, I spoke to a lender. They pulled my credit. Seems to be okay. I have decent income. I've got a pretty good debt-to-income ratio. But really, the bank hasn't taken any look at my, taxes. They haven't reviewed my bank statements. I've just kind of given them an indication of what I do for a living, how much I make, and how much debt I have. That's what a pre-qualification says. So obviously, you want to position yourselves in the best light possible so that you have that chance of buying your dream home. So I wanted to switch gears for just a quick second here and talk about what I'm seeing a lot of right now, which is the need to sell your home before you buy something. So obviously this is targeting the move up market or the move down market. I'm seeing some lateral moves, but not very many. Most people are taking advantage of low interest rates and still relatively low pricing, and they're moving up. They're choosing to buy a more expensive home, a larger home to accommodate their needs, their family's needs, or to just take advantage of the market. I've got some folks that have said, hey, we see where this market is going. We're going to speculate a little bit, but we're going to do so intelligently. And we're going to sell our home because it's in a very attractive area. And we're going to move up. We're going to buy something more expensive. We're going to ride that appreciation wave. And if we end up staying there, great. That's not a problem. But if we want to sell in 5 to 7 years, we think that price range is going to have appreciated. And we're going to be able to do the same thing with that house that we did with this house. And we're going to benefit from that appreciation. And then we'll go and we'll buy something somewhere else. So how do you do that? How do you create a scenario where, of course, you need to sell your home first before you can buy something? You want to get out there and you want to start looking at properties. You want to know what you're moving into. And obviously, if you see your dream home, then you want to make an offer. But how do you do that so that you're protected? Well, let me give you a roadmap here on how to do that. And let me give you a few different scenarios. So scenario number one is that you need to sell your home before you buy something, but you want to get out there, you want to start looking at some properties for sale. So let's say we walk into a home and it's perfect and it's everything that you want. We want to make an offer on that home, so we make them an offer, but it's contingent upon you listing your home for sale, selling it, and then closing on it so that you can use the funds from that transaction to then purchase this home. From a seller's perspective, it obviously is going to be unattractive to them to have to wait for you to list your home and then market your home and then negotiate a contract and then sell it. So understand that if you're a buyer and you're in that situation, and if you choose to make that seller an offer, the seller is not going to be entirely thrilled with the terms of the contract, but you can try and make that up by sweetening the pot a little bit and saying a few different things. Maybe it makes sense for you because you love the home so much to pay full fair market value for the house. You could say, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm going to give you everything you want in terms of what you're asking for. I'm going to pay your price, but I need some time to get things squared away on my end. So that's scenario number one. Scenario number two could be, we're comfortable buying the house at this price, but we want a little bit of a deal still. We're not the type of buyer that's just going to rush into anything, and we need to sell our house. So how about this? Why don't you take my offer, accept it, but then you have the right to continue to market your property for sale. And if for whatever reason another buyer makes you an offer that I can't match, then we'll move to a backup position. It's called a kick-out clause. And that's typically what we see. We typically see when a buyer makes my seller client an offer that's contingent upon the sale of their home, that it allows us the right to continue to market the property for sale. Now, again, it's going to depend on whether or not that buyer has listed their home, not listed their home. Maybe their home's under contract. Maybe they already took care of those steps. They listed their home, it's under contract, and now they need to go buy something. That would be the most favorable situation to a seller, of course, because they know that your home is under contract. It's got a contract on it. There's a definitive closing date associated with it, and you've already taken the steps necessary to make sure that you're going to be able to sell your home. Obviously, you want to sell your home. You're going to put up earnest money to buy this one, and the terms of the contract are probably going to reflect some sort of scenario that states that in the event your home doesn't sell, that you're not obligated to purchase this one because really you can't without being able to sell it. So this is where things really, just in listening to the multiple scenarios that I'm going through right now, it's easy to understand that it can get a little hectic. It can get a little overwhelming. And I'm working with several people right now that are going through this, and they have a lot of questions, and rightfully so. Of course, they want to know what would happen if this were to happen, or if this changes, how does it affect this? And they're very complicated transactions. There's nothing easy about transplanting a homeowner from one home to the other in this type of market. Now, in a different type of market, in a buyer's market, it was a little easier. I freely admit that it was a little easier to be able to purchase a home with a home sale contingency because the seller was just glad that you brought him a contract. Now, right now, in the middle of April, when our market is about as hot as it's going to get, it might get a little hotter, but this is when everybody's out and about and shopping for a new house. They're not going to be too thrilled about a home sale contingency to your contract, especially if you haven't even listed your home yet. So again, there's a bunch of different scenarios that can play out here. I want to be able to help you through that, and the best way to do that is really just to talk through your specific goals, your scenario, and see how we can create some sort of plan that accomplishes your goals, but that also leaves protections in place so that in the event something doesn't go through, you're not left homeless, or you're not left being obligated to purchase a home that you can't afford without first selling your home. So if there's anything that you'd like to discuss, if you're listening, if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, no obligation, just give me a call, 843-345-1273. You can text me at that number. And again, you can visit my website, www.listingsincharleston.com. And again, 59-day home sale guarantee. It states that I will sell your home in 59 days or less, or I will sell it for half of my commission. Some exclusions do apply, so please go to that website and feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to talk with you all about it. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. We've got one more segment coming up, so stick around. I'll be right back.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 8 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty, and if you're just joining me, we've talked about quite a lot this morning as it relates to real estate here in the Low Country, which is what this show is all about. We take national, regional, and local news, we boil it down to you, the local homeowner or home buyer, so that when it comes time to make a real estate-based decision, you've got the information you need. And, of course, if you'd like to reach out to me, I am a top 1% agent in the market, have been since 2009. So feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in buying or selling a home. My number is 843-345-1273, or you can visit my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can search the MLS, you can read some testimonials from past clients, take a look at everything I have for sale and have sold. And of course, if you're considering selling your home, like I've mentioned on this program before, click on the Sell Your Home tab, and you can learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee. And that very simply states that I will sell your home in 59 days or less, or I will sell it for half my commission. So we've talked about a few things this program. The first thing that we talked about was really the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's going on in our real estate market right now. And the good, of course, is that our market is increasing as it has been over the past 18 to 24 months. If you look at first quarter of 2014 versus first quarter of 2013, homes are selling faster, homes are selling for more money. Negotiability is still favorable in the seller's side. There's just a lot of good stuff going on. So the bad part about it is that if you're a buyer and you find a home that you love, you really need to make sure that you're prepared to make a good offer and that you're positioned with an agent that really understands what's going on in the market. So if you don't take those steps, if you don't prepare, then you could be left with a little bit of heartache when it comes time for you to make an offer and you find out that someone else has and you don't get the deal. And then the ugly, we talked about some of the ridiculous issues that I've had to face over the past week or so. Most importantly, an appraisal that was just way out of whack. And so what I wanted to talk about for the last portion of this program really is the first thing I wanted to talk about, really, because I've only got a little bit of time before we have to take our final break until I'm back tomorrow at 10 a.m. We do the Saturday at 8 and Sunday at 10 version of this show. And then next weekend will be a live show. But I wanted to talk about investing in real estate and how that has really been favorable for some people over the past few months. Now, if you take a look back at what happened 2004, 2005, 2006, when our market was on the rise, a lot of people speculated, a lot of people got caught. They bought at the wrong time, and then, of course, they had to do a short sale or foreclosure, which was a great opportunity for people that were entering the market from 2008 to parts of 2011 and early parts of 2012 to buy something under fair market value at the time, get a great deal, hold on to it, put a renter in it, and receive a nice return on that investment, or flip it. Put some money into it, put some sweat equity into it, sell it for more money, and be left with a nice check at closing and then go and do it again. And there's the nice thing is that even in this market, even in areas of Charleston where pricing is up 10 to 12% this quarter versus first quarter of last year, there are still plenty of opportunities for investment. And I see them all the time, and I work with a lot of investors to help them capitalize on some of these opportunities. So I wanted to give you just a little bit of an idea of some of what we're seeing out there so that if you're considering becoming a real estate investor, it's not too late. It really isn't. In fact, I would speculate that it's never too late to become a real estate real estate investor, because there's all types. There's the buy and hold. There's the flip. There are a few different strategies within those, but most of what I'm seeing right now are people that are going into markets that are a little underserved. They're going to areas of downtown Charleston that are kind of on the outskirts. They're going to areas of Mount Pleasant that are up and coming. And then, of course, they're looking at other areas like North Charleston, Somerville, Goose Creek, so on and so forth, where some of the individual neighborhoods that have been a little depressed and hit hard by short sales and foreclosures, there's still some opportunity left there to buy a distressed property and then fix it up and put it back on the market. So let's start first with the buy and hold. If you look at, let's use 2010 as an example, because we did a lot of these in 2010. An investor would go, they'd buy something, let's say they paid $100,000 for it, and that was an all-in investment, and that property was generating $1,500 a month in rent. So when you deduct from that amount, when you deduct from the rental income, the taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, the vacancy, so on and so forth, a lot of investors at that point in time were looking at about a 12 to 13% cash-on-cash return on their investment. So very simple math. If you take $10, next year it'll be worth $12. And then the year after that, it'll be worth $15, so on and so forth. So that's what was happening a lot a few years ago. Is people were buying, they were sticking tenants in it, and benefiting from the just overall group of people that had been through some sort of financial hardship. We had a large increase in tenants. We still do. And so there's still opportunities for you to get out there, find a well-priced home in an area that's going to rent quickly, put a tenant in there, a highly qualified tenant, hopefully a tenant that's willing to stay there for a few years, and then ride out this market, allow it to continue to appreciate at some level, benefit from that return on your investment from the rental income standpoint, but then you also get the benefit of appreciation. So that's the buy and hold strategy, and that's what I am mostly, is a buy and hold investor. That's mostly what my family has done, and they do commercial real estate. So they buy land, they develop shopping centers, and then they hold on to it and they manage it, and that's how they've done very well for themselves. So that's kind of how I was brought up, and my mentality behind buying investment property is that my grandfather told me, if you're going to buy something, buy it with the intent of holding on to it forever. And so that's what I've done. And I haven't leveraged my investments to go and purchase other investments. I want each individual investment to be self-sustained so that I don't have to touch it or worry about it before I move on to the next one. So the other type of investor is a little bit more of a risky investor. And we see this too. I work with a guy out of Vegas that does a few hundred of these a year in Vegas. And he's moved to Charleston. He's been in Charleston about 6 months. And he loves Charleston. He loves the ability to go to some of these areas like downtown Charleston and Wagner Terrace, find something that needs quite a bit of work, put the work into it, and then sell it for a really nice return on his investment. And he's making, well, I won't tell you how much he's making, but I'll tell you just in terms of return, he's making 20 to sometimes 40% return on his cash, all in, fully invested, after you take into account deductions for commission and closing costs after the sale. So they're out there. The question is, how do you find them? And that's really difficult right now, because what we've seen in our market is just an overall decrease in foreclosures and short sales. So, and I think the last time I ran the numbers, that the active inventory for short sales and foreclosures was something like 13 to 15% each. It was very, very low in comparison to where we were several years ago. So how do you go and how do you find these deals? Well, I think the first thing that you do is you find an agent that is a listing machine. Find somebody that takes a ton of listings, sells a ton of listings, and every once in a while they're going to find a seller that's in a bad spot that has to sell immediately. And I'll tell you that in the first quarter of 2014, I took 37 listings, and a large portion of those are already sold because I either matched them up with buyers or because we put some legwork into preparing them for sale. And before they hit the market, we made sure that the landscaping was done, the painting was done, we decluttered, so on and so forth, and those sold relatively quickly. But how do you find the really good deals? So the first thing is find an agent that is actively enthralled in the market and see if there are some opportunities every once in a while to find one of those types of deals. The second thing I would say is that be wary of websites like Zillow or Trulia that market pre-foreclosure properties. I've done a whole segment before on what pre-foreclosure properties really means, and it's a very long definition. There's a lot of things that really need to be taken into account when you look at those types of properties. So if you have questions about pre-foreclosures specifically, feel free to give me a call, 843-345-1273, and I'll explain that to you in greater detail. And then the third thing I would say is that just in terms of locating some of these good deals, don't forget about the estate sales, don't forget about the tax sales, and certainly don't forget about the idea that you can always go down to the courthouse, go to the master and equity sale, and go and purchase one of these properties before they're taken back by the bank. There's a lot that goes into that, and I'm going to talk with you about that on my next show next weekend. And I'm going to try and get a closing attorney on here so that he can really give you an idea of all the due diligence that needs to be put into purchasing those types of homes, because they are complicated transactions to say the least. So I tell you what, I'm out of time. I've really appreciated my time. And if there's anything that I can do for you, again, this is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. And I can be reached personally at 843-345-1273 or through my website, www.listingsincharleston.com. Enjoy your weekend.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning from 8 till 9. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.